G'day, everyone, and welcome along to the Toon podcast. Joining me today is Jack to go through what is a fairly hefty run through of events that are taking place. So we're gonna cover the pretty miserable loss to Man United, obviously. Talk up a few points in terms of how's Howe going, how are the plays going, what do we see the future, how's the mentality state, things like that. And for everyone that is coming down to Melbourne, coming through to Melbourne from Australia, stick around. I'm going to sort of go through some of the details for that as well, where the fans are meeting, what's the go for the Tuesday and the Thursday night for those who have got tickets. So yeah, that should be quite good. We've got a few pubs organised, a few little meetup venues, a couple more things underway, and obviously we're hoping to do a couple of videos as well. So hopefully we'll get a few fans in to do some interviews, little pieces before and after the game, maybe is on both of the days. So looking forward to catching everyone. How are you doing anyway, Jack? Early morning this morning, but not the sort that we want to have.
Yeah, it was an early morning. I'm feeling a bit better now than what I was about 12 hours ago, straight after the game. You've got to watch the game and then go to work straight away. So it's it's not very nice when you lose a game, but I feel a bit better, like marginally better. Like it wasn't a good result. It was a pretty devastating result actually, but we've still got a lot to play for. So there's one game left. So let's see what we can do. I just hope we've got Europe before Melbourne, because it will put a bit of a downer on it if we've got to all go and be all happy when we've missed out. But I think
something
the
to
dust will
celebrate
settle.
at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I was thinking about that as well, and I think we're in quite a nice position doing these shows and these podcasts when we've kind of almost had the whole day where we've been on the group chats and we've been sort of mulling through all of the finer details of it, rather than like a quick reactionary sort of over the top slating of the club. I know people are still having a go at sort of who and everyone associated with the club, but look, we've kind of had a little bit of time to let things settle. I guess the biggest disappointment from my side of things is it was there for the taking as well. Now, I know a lot of people have said that we bottled it, and I think one of the first things I want to have a chat to you about is, what's your opinion on people who are saying that we lack that big game mentality? Because this is not the first time we've lost a big important game. We seem to be absolutely fine when we're on a momentum run with nothing really kind of holding us back, nothing major to prove. We just kind of go out there and play free-flowing football. We're good. We're on top of the opposition. But as soon as kind of like the chips are down, we don't seem to have that big game mentality. And is that something that you see that we're going to have to build up over time? We're just not there yet because we've not had that situation for a while. Or what do you see that going like?
I think that's right, to an extent. I hate the word bottling. Like I think bottling it's just not a term that I like to use, but I can understand why people are saying that. I definitely think that with winning games and getting more experience and just becoming the club we want to become, then the mentality will come with that to an extent as well. So it's just we haven't learned how to really play these big games yet.
Manage expectations.
Yeah, like there was the cup final last season, and then there was obviously Milan this season, Chelsea. Like we just haven't really quite put our finger on how to play these games. So I don't think we bottled it necessarily, because there was such fine margins. And, if we score one of those one-on-ones, we're not even having this conversation. So it's just sort of very fine margins. But there's definitely a mentality problem, maybe, like to take 1 point from these last two games when all the pressure's on. That shows you that there's something not quite right, even though, like I said, the margins have been fine. I just think as the club grows, like these disappointments are part of growth of a club like ours. I remember when Man City they got knocked out of the qualifying for the Champions League at home to Spurs. Can't even remember. That must have been about 2010 or 2011 or something, when Peter Crouch scored for Spurs. So all clubs who are on an upward trajectory are going to have these moments and these disappointments, and that's what We just hope that we can learn from it, that the players can get more experience, and that we'll know how to play these games better next time. It's very disappointing to do this against this Manchester United team because, like you say, they were there for the take, and this is the worst Man United team in 20 years more. It's a terrible team, and even away, we should be winning this game. So whether we bottled it, I don't think so. I don't think there was a problem with the attitude or the application of the players. It was just the execution wasn't quite there for it, and it was very
for sure.
crushing way to lose.
I want to pull up the slides. So this is Dimmy's XG Wanker slide, which basically illustrates your point. There wasn't a lot in the game, to be honest, and we actually shaded it in terms of that we had a better expected goals. We had more shots, we had more big chances, and we had more big missed chances as well. That to me sums up a team that it just didn't really fall for on the day, let alone that someone that just kind of, I understand where some people are kind of suggesting that they've bottled it because they missed those chances when they were through in on goal. But I mean, those stats pretty much speak for themselves, don't they? In terms of we've actually managed that game pretty well. Things just didn't slide into place for us.
Yeah, I think we did generally. We didn't get it right at both ends of the pitch. So everything else that happened was pretty good, really. Like it wasn't a major problem. But then the issue is like it just feeds into this whole away form that this season has not been good enough. It's been really bad actually. Like the home form has really saved us. But we kind of picked this was happening back in December or even November when we lost to Bournemouth when we had all those injuries. The away form wasn't good. Like there was the anomaly at Sheffield United, the 8-0, but like there was a good win against Villa, but everything else, even Forest and Fulham were pretty fortunate, really, like to win those games. So there's a problem, and whether that's a mentality thing on the road, whether the players just get in their heads, but it's a complete contrast from last season. But to go into this game when all we needed was a draw, really, last season we got a 0-0 there last season, and we did at Arsenal as well, where we really dug in. We just don't seem to have that in us. And I know that we've had a bit of a patched up defence, and Trippier came in, he didn't seem fit, and he had a bad game. We've got our third choice right back playing at centre back at the moment. So there are the mitigating factors still, but still, even despite all that, we still had a team out there that should have been good enough to win this game and would have on another day if things had gone for us.
Well, we've been kind of making, I hesitate to use the word excuses because they're not excuses. They're real factors that have affected our season. This constant merry-go-round of players coming back from injury while someone else goes out. And I've seen people on social media criticizing team choices and who should have started over who. But, yes, Joe Linton's back fit, but is he match sharp? He's not match fit. We're pulling these players back in from long-term injuries. They're not going to hit the ground running at full tilt, bang in form. It's just an impossibility. So, we kind of need to defer somewhat. And I know you and I have both been proponents of let Eddie Howe manage the team. He has so much more data than we do as fans. He'll have analyzed every single little thing. And yes, we may have some question marks over loyalty to certain players, and he maybe needs to develop that mean streak to drop players for the good of the team, the good of the club. But I think he's got more details and more data than we would ever have. In terms of Trippier, I do want to touch on Trippier before we get into some of the other players. Last season, Trippier was our player of the season, I believe. He was absolutely fantastic, led from the back all season, was pretty much flawless for the entire season, and including the time that the previous season when he came in January. This season, something doesn't seem right with him, and I'm not going to speculate in terms of what it is. And I know other people have that doesn't seem fair to me, but his head doesn't seem right this season. It's not physical errors that he looked off the pace today. I have to admit, he looked well short of match fitness, but he's making sloppy judgment calls, and I think that's the most worrying thing for me. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 games where he's cost us. The Chelsea game in the League Cup semi-final. That's a prime example where, just massive brain fart moments. Are you putting that down to just his injuries? Are you putting it down to age? Are you putting it down to, just mental switch off time or something?
I don't think it's age, because you can't go from being the best player at the club and then 6 months later be be bad. Like, it's not. I don't think that's it. I just think he lost his confidence around Christmas time, and he was fine up until Christmas. Up until it was the Everton game. That was the first game where he made a couple of really bad errors, and then there was Chelsea, and he hasn't been fully fit, which isn't good. Maybe he maybe had his head turned in January by the Bayern Munich bid. He's obviously had competition with Livramento, but like, he's still a leader in the dressing room. He's still got a lot to offer, but I think if Livramento's fit at the moment, you'd have Livramento over Trippier. Like, the team used to be completely dependent on Trippier for attacking and defending as well.
Yeah.
And that isn't the case anymore. We've kind of learned how to play without him, which is good. But that's fine, like, because he is getting older. He's 33, he'll be 34 next season. I don't think we'll be getting any more 10, 12 million bids, whatever it was that Bayern Munich put in for him. So we just need to use him next season, manage his minutes. Don't be so dependent on him for attacking patterns of play and things like that. Yeah, but he was well off it today. Like, he was just completely off it for at least 2 of the goals. He wasn't the only one who didn't defend well today, but it's hard when you get such an experienced, quality player with such high standards, because he knows this himself. Like, he'll be kicking himself more than anybody, and if his body's not doing what he wants it to do at the moment, that's got to be frustrating for an elite athlete. But hopefully we see him in a bit better form on the weekend, because we're going to need him if we're going to get anything at Brentford.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of other players that I've seen sort of talked about a little bit on socials, one of the other ones is, why hasn't Pope come straight back into the side? What's your thoughts on that?
All I can really think about this is that his injury's not fully cleared up, and like you said before, Eddie Howe and the coaches have got data and analytics and everything about the players. Like, you can't really say Eddie is loyal to Dubravka, because he dropped him as soon as he bought Nick Pope. So I think I would have preferred to have seen Pope in. Like, you've got to think, if he's on the bench, he's got to be fit enough to at least play if he's going to be called upon. And a goalkeeper's not really like other positions where they're not doing a lot of running around and stuff. But I can understand why, because there's such different styles of goalkeeper, why with this defense he might have thought they've been defending quite well. Like, that defense has not really been a problem up until today. So, apart from the Palace game, but maybe he's just thinking he doesn't want to completely change the style and the way we play by bringing Pope in. But you do feel much more confident with Pope in goal than Dubravka. Dubravka's just struggled. He's had a few decent games, but he's generally struggled, and I think that might have been his last game for us, unfortunately, which would be a bit sad for him, because he's been good for the club over the years. But
he's been good. I kind of agree, and I think my brain was going to that mentality of, like, don't change something that isn't broken, and he has been defending. Yeah, we have been defending relatively well recently. We've certainly seemed to have found a solution to Dubravka's early problems when he came in for Nick Pope. So now that everyone's kind of settled into that new way of defending with Dubravka, do you really want to start changing everything up and have to, like, then change how you're defending as a team for the last couple of games of the season? So I do fully get that. Yeah. I get the frustration, but we've seen the stats. We created chances. We had opportunities to not only, like, do better in that game, but probably to go on and win it as well. Isak's goal chance, I think he's never going to get an easier chance than that, through one-on-one with the keeper almost, and seem to almost have too much time to take the ball to try and have a shot on goal. You've got Longstaff, obviously should have buried his chance. You've got Miggy, who's like inches away from a Gordon shot/cross it's one of those games where fine margins have kind of seen us not do the business, but you can't fault the players' effort in terms of creating those chances in the first place. The one thing that does kind of irk the Newcastle fans, though, is the penalty decision that wasn't given. Anthony Gordon's made his views quite clear in the post-match press conference. He's slated VAR, and it's literally as if just to prove Wolves' point. The big talking point, obviously, is Wolves have put a application in to have a vote for abandoning VAR for next season altogether. And it's kind of hard to justify keeping it in with those sorts of decisions going against teams, because as Anthony Gordon says, it's like, yes, look, you can kind of forgive the ref from not catching that because it was very, very tight, but that's what VAR is meant to be for. I don't know what was worse though. I don't know about you, but I was literally like, yeah, we're not going to get this. It's Man United. We're at Old Trafford. It's like, it's not to be expected, and rightly so. Now, that to me is something that's completely wrong as well, because surely you have to be judging what's on the screen. And I'm going to show everyone that is watching on YouTube, that is the incident that happened before Casemiro got the ball. And that is the resultant of that tackle. Now, I'm sorry, but do you think that happens from falling over on the grass?
Yeah, no, it was a bad, it was just a bad overall officiating decision. Like Anthony Gordon said, that you can't blame the ref because it didn't look like that to begin with, and it didn't even look like that on a couple of replays. Like the replays we saw looked like it was just a bit of a tangle, and then Casemiro got the ball. So, but then, like you said, like the job of VAR is to go, actually, hang on, they've got access to the angles and the views and everything, so they can say to the ref, look, that we think that there's more in this because his socks hanging off. And then if they can see the replay where you can clearly see he rakes his studs down his ankle. So, and that was at 1. I think that was at 1-0.
That was 1-0.
So it was still in the first half. So if we'd have got back into it, then it would have been a completely different game, because we're actually good. We're a good team at scoring a goal and then scoring another one quite quickly, which we nearly did in the second half as well, but we couldn't do it. But yeah, it would have completely changed the complexion of the game. And who knows, like the Man U thing, like I think there is an unconscious bias. Like I don't think it's a conspiracy or a consciously refs are not making decisions. Burnley got a late penalty there a few weeks ago, so it's not like, I don't think that's it. It's just,
I don't think it's intentional. It's just
it's an unconscious thing.
The 70,000 fans who you're going to end up on your back, and refs are aware of that, and the pressure's on. It is Man United. There's the TV replays. They're going to get scrutiny. Every single thing that happens with Man United involved, all over the papers, all over the news. So there is that extra pressure, I guess. But that's what VAR is for to me. And I think Wolves have got an absolute point to get it done away with, because it's clearly not working and it's not making the decisions correct. And it's taking the joy away from the game. It's taking the spontaneous joy from fans away to then not actually benefit anything anyway.
The fact is, you talk about correct decisions. Decisions are still subjective. So like it's still a referee's decision, or a video assistant referee. It's still them making a call about whether they think something is a foul or not. So you're always going to get this debate over subjective decisions. So it was brought in to minimize errors, clear and obvious errors. Like the way it's applied at the moment seems to be like checking every goal in case there was any kind of infringement anywhere around. And it just, like you said, it just sucks the emotion and the joy out of football to an extent that you can't even celebrate goals, because you don't know. Your first reaction is, oh, they're going to check something here. And like the offsides, like it's just, you don't want football. We've had two in the recent weeks. One against Everton, and there was one against Brighton as well. So fair enough, they were offside by the letter of the law, but that's not what the offside rule is for, to stop the, like, I think if they bring in the semi-automated thing with daylight, I think that would be a bit better. It'd be interesting to see how that changes the whether it means teams will just sit back and defend, and you won't get high lines and exciting games through that anymore. But and I know that there'll still be the debate over whether something, if they're going to fuck around with little lines and things, there's always going to be debate over whether they've done it in the right place or whether it was when the ball was kicked. It's just all this this shit little minute stuff that you don't want to be thinking
completely
about.
Overcomplicating it for the sake of it. Yeah, it's just it's pointless.
So I do think if they can get semi-automated with daylight, I think that's a step forward from what we've got at the moment. Goal line technology is fine because that's not subjective. That's black or white, yes or no. But you can't have, you're still going to get people disagreeing with decisions, just like Wolves said in their letter. So what's the point of it, really? It's not actually achieving.
It's not helping. It's not helping the game.
Just causing
it's not
more
helping the
problems.
spectacle of the game.
And it's just leading to people like us to be able to sit here and say, well, what's it doing? And I don't want to be talking about VAR. We try not to do it. And we're not blaming losing this game on that incident because
not at all.
All the other minutes that go on in the game, we've got to look at ourselves as well. But it just doesn't help,
Unlike Arsenal fans who are still bitching and moaning about that game earlier in the season. So I guess let's rip the Band-Aid off, address the elephant in the room. Where do we go from here? Because one of the big talking points on our group chat today, one of the big talking points on social media, on any other kind of chat that you come across, there's some players that probably need to have played their last game, if not Brentford being their last game, who are just sort of not good enough for where we want to be. And I think a lot of that comes from we're missing chances. Miggy does not look like he's interested anymore. I think he knows he's on the way out. He's not really looking to try to bust a gut like he normally does. At least that's my sort of opinion. Longstaff keeps coming in for criticism. Now, you brought up a really good point today, though. Is like if you're selling these sorts of players, then you kind of want to get a little bit of money for them. We've probably missed that bandwagon. The ideal opportunity to sell some of these players was probably in the summer. Eddie Howe, there's people saying, oh yeah, he's loyal to them and we should have sold them, but hindsight's 2020. Nobody knew there was going to be this massive drop-off. So, I mean, is it that we've finally found the limit of some of these players and they're starting to kind of regress a little bit after the initial Eddie Howe bump, and we just need to improve general overall quality?
Yeah, I think we do, but I think you have to look at it and say, well, Sean Longstaff, for example, he's scored 8 goals this season, so he's not been totally useless, but let's just look at he's played so many games because our 55 million summer signing who was going to replace him is out for the season. Yeah. Joe Willock hasn't played either, and then Elliot Anderson's also been injured, and then Lewis Miley's got injured towards the end of the season as well. So Longstaff should not have been playing this many minutes, and he wouldn't have been if we'd even if we'd have had one of those midfielders available more. And then if you're looking at it and saying, well, Sean Longstaff is a 5th choice central midfielder who is going to play in some games, then that's a different story, Like if someone's going to come in for him and say £10 million, fine, that's great. Let's sell him because it's good for FFP reasons as well to do that. So, but you're always going to have players in the squad who, and I get it with Longstaff. He missed another one-on-one today. He misplaces passes. He gets in good positions. Yeah. He hasn't been the same player he was last season. No. But I don't think that means, unless someone wants to come and buy him, because we can't just say to, promoted clubs or whoever, come and buy our players that we don't want anymore, because there's a reason why we don't want them.
Unless it's Nottingham Forest.
Unless it's Forest, yeah. But players like Longstaff are useful squad players when you don't have to rely on them to play. He's been playing on one foot all season as well, pretty much. So I think you have to respect what he's put himself through for the team, for the badge this season. So Miggy, I think he could have gone in January, maybe. He didn't want to go then, but his time's up anyway. He's the wrong side of 30 now, and we need an upgrade in that position. For someone like Murphy, he's had a few assists lately, but he's a bit like Longstaff. If someone wants to come and pay 8 to 10 million for him, then that's good. But I don't think that's going to happen with these players. So they're going to still be part of the squad. And if we do sell them, we'll have to replace them. And to replace them is not going to be cheap. So, and you can understand why Eddie Howe is is all right with squad players like this who are going to do what he wants them to do. They know that they know that they can meet the demands of his training and his tactical demands and things. So, like it happens every time we lose a game. People come and say, "Let's sell everybody or everybody who's not been playing well lately." But it just doesn't really work like that. You still have to use these players. And like I said, if someone wants to come and buy them, great, let's sell them. But I don't think that'll happen with these players. So, but
that's the
we
thing.
We do need a refresh though in certain positions. We know that, and that will happen anyway. But we don't want to give ourselves too much to do by selling players that we then have to go and replace.
That's the thing though, isn't it? Because if you sell someone like Longstaff to replace him, how much was Man United wanting for McTominay, which is probably a like for like? How much does Chelsea want for Conor Gallagher, who's pretty much a like for like player? So, they may be slight upgrades on him, but they're not like going to kind of walk in the squad and be another Bruno for us or something like that. So, you're either looking at selling someone like Longstaff, who's a local lad, who's probably going to be happier with a bench role than some other players that you bring in, who are going to probably want to have that starting role, or at least be in and around the squad a lot more. But you're either going to have to sort of spend the money you get from Longstaff, and yes, okay, with all of the amortization and all that sort of crap, then maybe there's a little bit of financial wizardry to be had by doing that sort of deal. But it seems like a very limited short-term view to me. And the only other option you've got is to buy someone who's really, really cheap, who's not going to be any better than them anyway. So what are you gaining from it? So for me, it's like it's a no-brainer. Just like if you get decent money, then great. But if not, then you're just making life difficult for yourself.
And the other thing is, he kind of fits into the style of play that we've had this season and last season. So the idea obviously was for Tonali to come in and replace Longstaff. And even, like I said, if Willock had been fit, that's a completely different. If Joe Linton had been more fit,
Joe Linton's been out,
Joe Linton, I hope to see him start today. But again, I obviously don't have data on his fitness and things. But him instead of Anderson, I would have probably gone today, just because this is the kind of game Joe Linton's good for. And if Fabian Schär was fit enough for the bench, maybe he could have started and Kraft could have gone right back. But this is all just with hindsight, like we don't know. But yeah, like Tonali was always going to be the Longstaff replacement. That didn't happen this season, but that will happen next season. And then Longstaff can go back into maybe getting 15, 20 starts instead of getting 45, 50 starts, which is what he has. So, and next season, though, there will always be someone else as well, though, who gets, a few weeks ago it was Dan Burn as well. So there's always going to be someone who's going to cop it, and that's just football. So that's just part and parcel.
Yeah, I had a go at someone today because there's always that local guy. It's almost like the local player who's come up through the academy seems like an easy scapegoat because we haven't really paid a load of money for them. Or they haven't come with a bigger reputation. And as we said, it's like, look, I mean, Longstaff scored 8 goals this season. He's actively probably been a lot better in recent times than what Kieran Trippier has been. And so, where's this criticism for Kieran Trippier? Well, you can't criticize one without the other if you're looking at their performances on the day. One quick thing before we kind of try and wrap things up, make this a nice little short one for today. Don't want to dwell on the miseries too much. Look forward to the Brentford game. Hopefully we can pull something out of that one and still secure some kind of European football for ourselves and celebrate that when we're down in Melbourne. But I just wanted to say, like, are you as annoyed as I am seeing Chelsea above us when they've flaunted all the FFP rules and still seem to be getting away with it?
Yeah, there's a pretty good account on Twitter that's been doing some forensic investigations into Chelsea's finances. Like in the last couple of months, it's come out that they sold a hotel to themselves and that now they've sold a training ground to themselves. So, like whether the Premier League's just behind this, I don't know. But Chelsea have just done what Chelsea have done over the last few years. I feel like it's going to come back and bite them at some point because they've just sort of, they've just ploughed into the transfer market completely scattergun. You've just got to say that the form has been good lately. They've picked up. They beat us, which was probably the start of this good run they've had. Pochettino's doing a good job. Yeah, it's frustrating. I think we could still finish above them, but they'd have to lose at home to Bournemouth, which seems unlikely. But for us, I just think we would have. I posted the league table from after that Chelsea game on Twitter before. We were 10th at that point, 7 points away from 6th, I think it was. So you have to look at it, and it's hard to do that when you've just had a devastating defeat, consequential defeat like we've just had. But you do have to look at it and say we would have taken that at that point of the season. So let's just go and do our job at Brentford. Even if we don't do it, Man United could very well lose to Brighton, in which case we've got 7th anyway. And then they'll probably go and beat Man City in the cup, and it will be
that will be just our luck. That will be just our luck. Yeah.
But if we can get this season, and if we get Europe, however we do it now, I think it's got to go down as a good season, even though it's felt very stressful and difficult at times, and everyone's looking forward to the end of the season. Let's just hope we can do it and refresh and reboot in the summer. And we want to be in Europe for the coefficient as well. So you get coefficient points. So we want to get used to the the midweek football and all the rest of it that goes with it. So let's hope.
Yeah, it's that mentality thing, like developing the mentality of knowing you have to play these many games and doing those quick turnarounds and getting used to them and being okay with that. I think it's something that's really important for the club. And if we can do that at a lower level than the Champions League with the group of death, then all the better. To me, I think what sums it up is, given that we've had the most injuries of any team in the Premier League this season, and we're going into the last game of the season in with a shout of some sort of European football, I think that's a huge achievement for the club and Eddie Howe. And I'm sure it would have been so different had we managed to, had we had Tonali, had we not had Joe Linton with an injury, had Willett come back and played, had Wilson not lost another game, had Pope not dislocated his shoulder. We've had just injuries upon injuries, and it's caught up. And I don't think any team, and everyone's complaining that Man U have been poor. It just so happens that this game that we lost against them, they had a couple of their big players back, and that's what makes all the difference.
But you look at clubs like Man U, and they've been a basket case for a good few years now. But they still get results though. They still manage to get to cup finals. It's the mentality of being a big club where they didn't give a shit about this game this morning. But they didn't care about it. Their fans didn't want the game. For us, it was really, really massively important. So we will get there in time. But that's just what you get from being a club that consistently wins things. Like cup final last season, cup final this season. That's where we want to get to, where we're playing these games and we've got experience of them and we know what to do. Because we still don't quite have that. But we're not supposed to have that at this point as well, though. Really, we're still, and we say this all the time, and people don't want to hear this after you've just had a really bad defeat. But that's just how I feel about it. We're on this journey and this magical sort of upward trajectory, and like people say, like progression's not linear. You're going to have ups and you're going to have downs, and we've had quite a lot of very upsetting, disappointing downs this season. But we know that more ups are on the way, and that the club's in the right direction, and that's the overall context for this always. Yeah. And every result like this, every bit of pain you get from this, we learn from it, and we know we don't want this again, and we learn and we try and improve for next time, and that's all we can do. And I think we've got the best manager for that, and we've got the good owners, and everyone at the club understands that this is where we're at, I think.
No, and I think there's obviously risking being called a happy clapper. Look, I'd much prefer to be worrying about missing out on Europe narrowly in the last game of the season than having to go to the last game of the season stressing about staying in the Premier League and not getting relegated. So, it swings and roundabouts. But look, we are moving in the right direction. It's still a bright future for us, I think. We've got a younger squad now than we've ever had for a long, long time, and it's all young, top quality as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's a bit depressing when we lose the games like that, and we kind of seemingly threw away a Europa League spot. But look, dust ourselves down, as the old Brucey used to say, and we'll carry on, and we'll come back fighting, and hopefully, as you said, we can get something against Brentford. So before we wrap things up, I just want to give a quick shout out for the Melbourne trip. Obviously, Newcastle is playing Brentford on Sunday. Is it Sunday? And then catching a plane straight around the other side of the world to Melbourne down here in Australia. It's going to be some good shenanigans for the players, for the fans, for the staff. So Tuesday night there's a workshop session for the fan groups here in Australia. So whoever's got tickets for those, I'm going to be there. I think Craig's going to be there. I'm not sure if Keegan's going. Well, there's a few of us going to be around. Obviously, all the other fan groups from around the country are going to be there, hoping to sort of get some idea and work with the club. So that's going to be quite good. Wednesday night is the Newcastle against Spurs at the MCG, the home of sport in Australia, if you talk to Bobby. But we've got a couple of meetups planned. So there's 3 pubs in Richmond. We're going to take over a little corner of Richmond, walking distance to the MCG. The Precinct Hotel, Richmond Club Hotel, and the Corner Hotel. So head along there, grab grab a few beers and get yourselves lubricated beforehand, and then walk up to the G before the kickoff. Meet the rest of us. As I said, we're gonna hopefully try and get some interviews with some fans for the podcast as well. So keep an eye out for us. Then Thursday, we've got a talk-in Q&A with an ex-player that's actually at the casino. And it is the Macam Slayer himself. Shoal Amiobi is going to be on. Shoal Amiobi. So he will be answering all the questions. I promise I will behave and not get awkward with my questions if I get a chance to ask any of them. But it's going to be a good night again. It's just fans getting together, celebrating the club that we all follow. There's nothing on the line with it. It's just the experience and the banter that we're all looking forward to. And then there's an A-League All-Stars team that will be taking on Newcastle on the Friday night at the Marvel Arena, so in the Docklands. And again, we've got a few pubs lined up for Newcastle fans to meet up at. So it's going to be on South Wharf, which is just along from the casino on South Bank. So just keep walking along. Nice little bridge just across the river to walk up to the Docklands Stadium. So again, nice walking distance to some brews. We've got the Boat Builders Yard, Melbourne Public, Munich Brauhaus, and the General Assembly. And it is a Friday night, and I don't know if they still do it, but the Munich Brauhaus, when I was living in Melbourne, used to do $5 pints of their house beers from 3 till 5 or something stupid like that. So if you get along early for those, hopefully they're still doing those. But otherwise, we'll see you at one of the other ones. But look, to me, I'm absolutely loving it. There's plans that we might try and get some flag displays along one of the river, on one of the bridges along the river, like they did in Milan, I think it was. So there's a few things. Obviously, if there's any more details and events, they'll be posted on Aussie Mags. We'll try and let everyone know. Obviously all the other Facebook groups, the Brisbane Toon Army group that I'm on, that should be all good. So I mean, if you've got any questions though, hit us up or hit up Aussie Mags and we'll try and answer them. Unfortunately, because of the turnaround time, it doesn't look like we're getting any open training sessions. Basically they're off the plane, they play the next day, and then they get one day to relax, and then playing again on the Friday. So not ideal after the season we've just had, but we've already covered that in previous pods. So I'm looking forward to it. Are you hanging out for that? You're taking your little girl down for her first Newcastle game?
Yeah, so my 3-year-old's coming down with us, so she's very excited. She's met Keegan before and Keegan's kids, so she's looking forward to seeing Keegan. No, it'll just be good. Like, we don't get the opportunity to do this. Most of us who are from the UK used to have season tickets, and we missed that with our friends before the game and stuff. So it's not the same for friendlies, obviously, but it's pretty exciting for us that Newcastle are coming here to Australia. So I'm really looking forward to it. Aussie Mags have done an amazing job with this, talking with the club, and I think war flags are doing something, or there's something being
I was just
involved
about
there
to
as
say,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
so
I've been
yeah,
roped
like
into to do the flag displays before the game. So get along early,
so
and
we sometimes have Twitter messages and things with people who listen to the pod or who we talk to. So it'll just be nice to catch up with some people
yeah,
for a
looking
drink.
forward to
And
it.
yeah, no, it'll be really special. That the club are in Japan as well in July. That would have been a good one to go to,
That would
but
have been very good. I'm hanging out to get to Japan
it's
at
a
some
bit
point. I
close,
know
I
you
think, for
like
this.
Japan,
So
so
Japan's an amazing place. So
yeah.
anyone who can go, I would very much encourage you to do that. But no, it's good. It's all part of the. It's a crazy idea to be playing friendlies at this time of the season, but who cares? Like it's part. This is modern football now, so let's make the most of it, and hopefully they don't come back in too long a time for a preseason sometime.
Indeed. And what's the odds for Ange still being in charge of Spurs by the time the game kicks off?
Yeah, that's going a little bit
It's all
south.
getting a bit tetchy down there, isn't it? So yeah, we'll see what happens, but it should be interesting. But anyway, that's probably us for today. So thank you for joining us. Commiserations on the result. Obviously, we are going to hopefully try and get some more pods out before the Melbourne trip as well. So we'll get the Brentford game on. But thank you for watching, listening, and give us some feedback if you can. Thanks for joining us, Jack, and I will catch you, if not beforehand, down in Melbourne.
Thank you very much. See you soon. Take it easy.
Cheers, mate.